Hi girls, this is Miss Gaska. Today I'm going to go over English 1 Semester 2, Week 2, Activity 1.16, Targeting Your Audience. Our learning targets for this activity are to identify different types of evidence and their purposes, and to select evidence, appeals, and techniques specifically to reach a target audience. So, to begin with, connecting with an audience. To make an argument compelling, writers and speakers use a variety of reasons and evidence that they think will convince their audience to agree with them. Knowing your audience helps the writer or speaker decide what reasons and evidence to use. So, what we are going to do is we're going to review the informational text, speech, and presentation that we've encountered in this half of the unit and identify examples of the different types of evidence used. Then we're going to explain the purpose of each as a tool of persuasion. So, to begin with, facts and statistics. So, numbers drawn from surveys, studies, or observations, as well as pieces of commonly accepted information about the world. So, you're going to find an example of facts and statistics from one of the readings or the presentation that you guys have seen, and jot it down right there in the B section. And then, in the C section, you're going to explain if that's logos, ethos, and pathos, and then in what way. So how does that appeal to those things? The next one says personal experience or anecdote, a true story that describes a person's experience relative to the topic. So for the B section, you're going to, again, find examples from one of your readings or from the presentation, and then explain if it's used for logos, ethos, and pathos, and what way is it used. And then we have illustrative example, which is brief or extended. It's a description of a specific experience or example to support the validity of a generalization. So you're going to find an example of that, put it in B section, and then in C section, you're going to explain if it's logos, ethos, or pathos, and then in what way. Here we continue. We have expert personal testimony, which is the use of a person's words or conclusions to support a claim, whether the person is like the audience or is distinguished by his or her expertise. So you're going to find an example from one of the readings or the presentation, explain if it's logos, ethos, or pathos, and in what way. And then a hypothetical case. Use of what if or possible scenarios in order to challenge the audience to consider its implications. Again, find an example and then say if it's ethos, logos, or pathos, in what way. So, and number 2 says, list each resource you cited and then describe the target audience. So list whether it was the speech, one of the previous readings that we did, whether it was the presentation. So list that resource and then describe who that resource was trying to appeal to. Like, who were they talking to? Who was their audience? Now, in this activity, we're going to be reading an editorial and identifying how an author crafts an argument to connect with the audience. So setting a purpose for reading. This is the most important section of any of your readings because it tells us what to be on the lookout for. So we're going to be highlighting any information that helps us figure out who the audience is in the article. All right, so I'm going to use my highlight tool. And we're going to circle words and unknown words and phrases, trying to determine what those words mean by using context clues, word parts, or a dictionary. So, this editorial is called An Early Start on College. I'm going to read the first few paragraphs with you and demonstrate how to annotate, and after that, I want you to annotate the rest of it, and then meet me down in the question section so that we can go over those together. So, again, we're going to be looking for highlighting anything that tells us who the audience is and circling unknown words and phrases. So, the subtitle says, More Minnesota Teens Should Use Dual Credit Enrollment. And then it gives us a date, and it says it's from the Star Tribune, which I assume is some kind of a newspaper. Taking advanced dual enrollment classes made a big difference in Paj Nutab's Lee's life. Her Hmong immigrant parents didn't encourage her to go to college. They thought graduating from high school, then getting married or finding a job would be enough for their child. but her exposure to college and higher level courses while at Johnson High School in St. Paul set her on a path to graduate from St. Olaf College in Northfield. Her experience should be shared by more Minnesota students, and the legislator should expand the programs that make that possible. So I'm going to pause here. So, are there any words that we think we may not understand? I don't really see any because dual is explained over here and legislator is explained over here, but as you continue, you might find words that you don't know or understand. So, I'm going to highlight in particular this part that says the legislature should expand the programs that make that possible. So that kind of hints to me that this is like a plea to people to vote for, to voters to vote for the legislature to do so, or it's a plea to the legislature to do so with or without a vote. And that's the only thing that really indicated to me that that's who they were speaking to. So I'm going to go down to the questions. Number 3 says, what is the central claim in this editorial? How does the writer introduce it? So when you're reading this editorial, once you've read the whole thing, figure out what the central claim is. What is the main thing the writer wants the reader to understand? And then how does the writer introduce that claim? Number 4 says, what claim does the author use the CSC study to support? So you're going to find where it talks about the CSC study, and then explain what that study is supposed to support. Number 5 says, what claim does the author make in paragraph 10? So you're going to go back, look at paragraph 10, and figure out what claim the author is making. Like, what is it that they're trying to make a point about? Number 6 says, which rhetorical appeal is the most effective in this article and why? So think about if it uses logos, ethos, and pathos, which one is the most effective that they used and why? So then we're going to scroll down. Working from the text. The Star Tribune editorial addresses multiple audiences. In the space below, identify each audience. Use quotes you highlighted to show how each audience is referenced or directly addressed in the text. So you're going to want to go back and find each audience that you were able to identify, and then you're going to put the space below which audiences were there, and then use quotes to show that that was the audience. And then in the check your understanding box, it says, or section, it says, how do the audiences shape the argument of an author? So you're supposed to think about, what does an author do differently depending on whom they're speaking to? You're going to want to put yourself in the shoes of an author and pretend like you're writing to various audiences to really understand how they shape their argument in order to appeal to specific audiences. So then, writing to sources, argument. So you're going to be returning to the speech in Activity 1.15, Obama's speech, and rereading it in light of what you have learned about targeting the audience and rhetorical appeals, thinking about the audience that Obama was addressing. Then you're going to revise your explanation of how Obama builds his argument that you wrote taking these issues into account. So in your writing, you want to make sure that you're revising your thesis to include the techniques and rhetorical appeals Obama used to reach his audience, and include direct quotations from the text to support each specific claim you make. Introduce and punctuate all quotations correctly. Now, when you do this, I want to point out that you don't have to write an entirely new paragraph or piece of writing. You're just revising your previous piece in order to meet these new goals, okay? So that's all there is to do for this activity. I will see you in Activity 1.17 for our next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.